you all agree are the right things to work on could be something that we also could work collaboratively on. But let me start with the kind of the problem, the challenge out there. And you know, people have heard this, but I want to show you a statistic about it because it's true, and it's a shame that it's true, but it's not something that we can't do anything about. We can do something about it. But look at the facts. Poverty predicts low academic achievement. Now, there's a lot of statistics I could throw up there. This is just one that is easy to, everybody's familiar with the SAT exam, and there's some good data out there on it, and you can actually go to the College Board website and find this data. But if take a look at this pattern here. As you can see, the score on the SAT exam is directly related to the family income of the child taking the exam. That shouldn't be the case, because this is really the greatest country in the world, the history of the world, and yet there's still this connection between poverty and achievement. It's not just in Houston, frankly, it's not just in the United States, and it's not just today. This has been the case for all time. However, we're better at measuring things today. It's also been the case in other societies throughout time. If we look back to the Roman Empire, the literacy rate in Rome, the very center of the Roman Empire, was only 10% at the height of the Roman Empire. So if you can imagine what percentage of the society had access to the top jobs in Rome, that's the kind of number you're looking at. Now, so you might think that since a good predictor of academic achievement is poverty, then you might look to where the poverty is, and you might assume that you would find low academic achievement. And so it turns out that there's a lot of poverty right here in Houston. And so if you look at the HISD, we have 78% economically disadvantaged students. And so that's just probably the easy. It's measured everywhere around the country. It's been measured for a long time, and so that's probably the best number to use. And that's a lot more impoverished than some of the groups that we're often compared to. For example, if you'll take a look at the state of Texas, you'll see it's only 55% economically disadvantaged. And then the United States is only 41% economically disadvantaged. And so the challenge is obviously going to be what we do in all areas around the country where we have the high poverty. Now, you might therefore expect, as I mentioned, if there's that strong connection, and always has been, between poverty and achievement, then where you find poverty, you would find low performance in schools. And in fact, that's exactly what we had. If you look back to 1987, so just click one more time, you will see that in 1987, 70% of HISD schools were in the bottom quartile of all schools in the state of Texas. Now, we didn't have a full-fledged accountability system at that time, but we did have test scores. If you all remember, Ross Perot had the no pass, no play, and there was sort of the beginning of modern reform was in the mid-'80s, and it really took hold in the early '90s, really in Houston, actually. But at that time, we really geared up on accountability and started measuring things. So 70% of our schools in the bottom quartile, in the lowest category of performance. Now, at that time was when the era of modern reform began. It began with the help of the Greater Houston Partnership, and it began with the entrance of several reform people to the Board of Education, including Rod Page and Don McAdams, Kathy Mintzberg, and several others that all came on board at that time. Not that there had not been reform boards before, because I'm not showing you how bad it was in 1977, which was when I was in the HISD going to school. But I'm taking this because it's the near future, and it has to do with when I believe that we really took our collaboration with the partnership to a new level. Now let's flash forward to 2008. Now only 5% of our schools are in the bottom category, and that is after 3 significant increases in the toughness of the state accountability system. It's harder than it was in 1987 to get out of the bottom, and we have done that. Now, this is about the passing standard. This is not really the goal of what we're all talking about and ought to be talking about, but you can see that the reforms have worked and that results matter. And I think it's really, well, I want to say, among other things, thank you to the Greater Houston Partnership for the support that you gave in getting those people onto the Board of Education at that time and supporting the difficult choices, because this kind of change is difficult. This didn't just happen because we all started cheering about it. It happened because we instituted these reforms that included accountability and then decentralization and then competition. And we've recently added a fourth category of reform, which we call performance management. What I've been showing you up to now is the state accountability system. And it's a passing-based system, and it's also just a state. But you might well want to know how we're doing compared with the rest of the country. And so to do that, you use a norm referenced test. Now, when I was in school, we took the Iowa test of basic skills. Now at the HISD, we administer the Stanford test. In either case, it's a norm reference test, which means it's the same test that's given all around the country so that you can compare the performance in one school district with another, even if they're in different states. And you don't have to worry about the fact that accountability systems are different in each state. The other thing about the test is that a 50 means that you're at grade level. There's actually a range around 50, sort of a plus or minus area, but 50 means you're at grade level. And so in the past, we were actually far below grade level because we had a lot of poverty and we weren't really doing what needed to be done about it. Not to say we weren't trying, but we certainly had not figured out successful ways to intervene and make a difference in high poverty environments. So we were where you'd expect us to be, in the low 40s. Starting in, I just took the last, actually never mind, I'm gonna just talk a little bit more about that, just to say that we reached the average and now slightly exceed the average for the nation, even though we certainly do not have average students when we're referring to poverty, economic disadvantage. And that is momentous, actually, to get the same results that the United States is getting at 41% free and reduced lunch when we're at 80% free and reduced lunch. So the next slide. I mentioned that we did this with education reform, and let's go ahead and click one more time. You'll see that I've put reform into a kind of a simple pyramid model. This represents a lot of time and a lot of work in reform, as we all know who have been involved. But really it's about four things. First is accountability, and you have accountability so that you have the data that you need to know how the students are doing. You decide what is important for children to know. Kids, for example, need to know where China is on a map. Children need to know how to do fractions and a few other things, no matter what they're going to do in life. So there are standards, and once you measure the standards, we now have the data we need to know how the students are doing. Decentralization gives the principal, the people closest to the child, the teacher and the principal, the ability to make certain decisions based on accountability and the standards we have and the results that we know, in order to get more of the kind of results that we need. And we have altered decentralization over time. For example, we give less latitude than we used to, for example, low-performing schools. We tend to more proscribe the things that they have to do in certain ways than we used to. Another change is that we added pre-kindergarten, which was an enormously important addition to what we did. That's not listed as a reform, but it's a very important thing that we added. And we first added it as half day and then full day, and now we're trying to get more kids involved to it. It's optional, but it's important. The third is competition. Now you're saying we're going to give parents the power to choose what school they go to and to the ability to escape a school that they perceive to be a failing school. And then the fourth element, performance management, is what we're really working on now. And that's about aligning our organization from top to bottom around the notion that what's important is growth in achievement for students. What's important is not passing the test. It is good to pass, but we all know that no parent ultimately has a goal of their child passing the test. The goal of any parent is for their child to exceed to their potential and to grow each year. And so we want to change what we do to that. And what we measure needs to be what we focus on, maybe even what we pay on. And so we believe that it's appropriate to pay for those results in order to keep more of the teachers that are the best at getting those kinds of results. And so I guess I'd like to say that we can change our focus to what we care about and what parents care about, away slightly from what the state and the federal government care about. We still have to do what they say, we still have to act under their rules, we still have to measure the things that they want us to measure, and that's fine.